Military men. The Secretary of Defense of the pharaoh was a man who was very close and loyal to the pharaoh. His name was Satis, Orly in my current reincarnation. He was a great warrior. Of note, the army symbol and the symbol of the pharaohs was the eagle. The eagle was ruled by the pharaohs like many other animals in the palace. The eagle symbol appeared on buildings, weapons, and also on combat helmets. In modern day, the eagle is the symbol of countries like the United States and Germany, and even Nazi Germany during the reign of Hitler. The eagle is found on many government buildings and various monuments in the world today. Satis was tall, noble, and handsome. He had several wives and a lot of children. One of his children was Maharaba, or Abraham in my current reincarnation. He was also a part of the high priests since childhood. Although he was from the Fatasol dynasty, and I was a Hebrew slave, we became great friends. His father was also very fond of me, and we always found ourselves studying or working together. Eventually, we both completed the Baraka process and became minor priests under Fatahotap's supervision. We parted ways when I fled from Egypt with my wife, my father, and the rest of the Hebrews during the Exodus. Another person who I've known for many years in my current reincarnation is Shula, the daughter of Adam. Shula was Yehoshua, the son of Nun, in her first incarnation. Yehoshua's father was Nun, who is actually Adam, in my current reincarnation. Yehoshua was the son of my aunt, making him my first cousin. He was my age, and we grew up together as the children of Hebrew slaves until I was taken from my parents' home. Yehoshua reached very high places in the Hebrew Jewish ruling class as a Jewish military man and was very close to Moses, Aaron the high priest, and also my father, Amram, Rabbi A.A. Amram at the time controlled everything and everyone behind the scenes without anyone's knowledge or understanding. Today it is very amusing to think about it. I'm trying to figure out where Amram acquired his many talents and power back then. A question arises in my mind. Is it possible that Rabbi A.A., with all of his reincarnations and talents, was in fact an alien Fatasol, who lived among us for thousands of years in varying degrees? Moses. Potiphar, Pharaoh's eldest daughter, raised Moses, who also underwent the Baraka process under the supervision of Fatahotap. This is how Moses acquired his supernatural powers and spiritual talents to communicate with higher and supreme powers. Like the pharaohs of the royal palace, Moses had magical powers. I found Moses to be very tough and cruel, but a brilliant man with special leadership talent. Everyone was afraid of him, yet everyone respected him. He escorted approximately 3 million people out of Egypt to Israel in a journey that took 10 years. As opposed to the 40 years that is written in the Torah. For the record, they could do the same journey in less than half a year. The reason why Moses made the journey to Israel take much longer was to get rid of the old generation and their slave mentality, while simultaneously preparing the new generation for a new and powerful life with a different set of values as a free nation. In the first 49 days until they reached Mount Sinai, 1/3 of the people died, mainly due to the intense heat of the Sinai desert. The deceased consisted of primarily elderly people. Another significant number of people died during the following years due to an incomprehensible disease, and another 250,000 were ordered to be exterminated by Moses due to their betrayal in the supreme power. This extermination was due to the famous story known as the Golden Calf. The difference is that instead of the 24,000 people butchered, as is written in the Torah, Moses ordered the extermination of 250,000. Many more people were killed along the way. Many were also killed by various tribes that attacked them on the way to Israel. No one was buried on the way to the Holy Land other than Moses and Aaron, the high priest. Bodies were either left behind or, at most, they were burned. True Jewish burial began only after the Jews entered Israel. The Jews arrived in Israel without Moses. They were about 1.5 million people, including the calculation of the increase in population due to the reproduction within the 10-year period. Most of the people were young, as planned. Reflecting on my past. As I write my memories of my first reincarnation, I delve deeper into my soul, and many memories come to me from the past. Nevertheless, living over 900 years, there are many stories and memories. I don't remember a large portion of it, but what I do remember, for the most part, is unimportant to me. It does not feel like an issue that has any impact on my current path in life. I choose not to document countless stories which only interest me and are not significant at the moment. Getting into the small details takes me into deep places within myself that make it unnecessarily difficult for me. It also causes me to disconnect from my current self and my current environment. I also feel that it affects my current work and missions within TLS. I recently took a new mission upon myself that is vital to improving our current global situation. I cannot discuss this mission as it is currently active, very dangerous, and is a result of the malevolent forces that are operating our world. I try not to let my memories of the past interfere with my work, but they intrude daily. I do not and will not fail. Certainly not now, and not in the situations we are currently in today. In my opinion, extraordinary and significant events are about to happen that will affect the future for us all, and I would like to be on the positive side of the equation. Failure is not an option right now. Neither I nor my family can afford failure at the moment. I also feel that I became carried away and I may be revealing too much information, which is not what my superior, Rabbi A.A., intended when he gave me the permission and great privilege to document these past 10 years. It is difficult for me to admit, but I regret that I did not listen to Rabbi A.A. at the time when he asked and insisted that I document and write everything. If I would have listened to his advice, today there would be at least 10, if not more, volumes of Rays of Light with an abundance of mysticism and insights that would one day serve the entire world. The Holy Temple. The first Holy Temple was built by King Solomon in the year 2929 according to the Hebrew calendar, or 831 BC according to the Gregorian calendar. The first Holy Temple was built in roughly 7 years and lasted for 410 years before it was robbed, burned, and destroyed by the Babylonians in the year 3339 according to the Hebrew calendar, or 421 BC according to the Gregorian calendar. Being that the construction of the temple was very costly, King Solomon financed its construction by imposing heavy taxes on the people. The temple was constructed from various materials such as local rocks and stones, trees such as cedar and cypress trees, and metals such as copper and primarily gold, which covered most of the internal structure. The inception of the idea to construct the Holy Temple came from King David. His initial intention was to create a house to serve God, but it turned to an ego-driven process that was also used to collect more taxes. Corruption, like today, was almost everywhere. King David was preoccupied with wars, political issues, economic issues, and personal problems, which prevented him from realizing his dream in building the first Holy Temple. King Solomon, King David's son, manifested the idea of the first Holy Temple, but it came at a heavy price to the people of the nation. The first Holy Temple was composed of 3 main parts. The main hall, or the welcoming hall, was the first part of the Holy Temple. The second part of the temple was the main temple, which contained the menorah and the main altar on which incense was burned and animals were sacrificed. There were various altars placed in different areas within the temple complex. The third part of the temple was known as the Holy of Holies, in which the Ark of the Covenant, along with the Cruvim, were both located. The Cruvim were made out of gold. I don't know why they are referred to as the Cruvim to this day. They were relatively small statues compared to the size of the Holy of Holies and the temple itself. The statues were half eagle and half human. One of the Cruvim was masculine, with a male human body, and the other was feminine, with a female human body. This attests to a kind of foreign work, or even a kind of idolatry within the temple itself, which is a complete contradiction to the basic beliefs of the Jewish people. The Holy of Holies, also known as Dvir or the Dvir, sat on what we know today as the foundation stone, or Even HaShetia, within the dome of the rock as we know it today. The foundation stone was used as a stand for the Dvir. Sacrifices were made and the incense was burned on the foundation stone, Even HaShetia. The foundation stone had, and still has, very strong energy and powers, and its geographical location is the energy center of our planet, as well as the energy center of the universe as a whole. The origin of the name Even HaShetia, the foundation stone, is based on the essence of the term, quote-unquote, founded, translated from Hebrew, which means that the origin of the creation of energy and creation itself was founded in this geographical location. The place itself is extremely energetically rich. In a straight line, deep underground, are the contents of the Holy of Holies, which are concealed there until this very day. The room in which these items are hidden, like the rest of the temple, was designed and built by King Solomon. A short time before the destruction of the first Holy Temple, King Hosea ordered to move, store, or hide all the holy content of the Holy of Holies in the hidden room. This was carried out by Mano and Gama, with the intention that none of these holy items would fall into the hands of any gentil that would want to destroy the temple. only the high priest was allowed to go inside the Holy of Holies once a year, during the atonement, also known as Yom Kippur. However, the high priest and his assistants would go there every so often, not just on the Day of Atonement. King Solomon would spend time there in isolation for the purpose of spiritual elevation. He would use the Holy of Holies as a space to read and write. My knowledge and my memories regarding King Solomon and his father take me back to the past. It's a very strange feeling. I knew them and their heirs very well. As a high priest, I was their counselor, their doctor, and I dare to say, even their psychologist. David and Solomon, who were the founders of the first Holy Temple, were very strong and very smart, but very corrupt in their nature. They were greedy, powerful, and respected. Their personal lives were in utter chaos, and as a family of nobility, I would define them as a dysfunctional one. Within the family itself, there was incest, rape, and various murders. There were also wars over power and inheritance. There was betrayal between all family members of the family, from the grandparents to the grandchildren, along with all of their descendants. David and Solomon preserved their kingdoms by killing every possible regime. During most of his reign, David was preoccupied with different wars. In his honor, Solomon, his son, practiced peace and quiet and almost no war or resistance except for his first 5 years. King David lived about 70 years. He ruled the people with a strong hand. He conquered a lot of land and expanded his kingdom. David was very handsome. However, he was short and had red hair. He was known to be an impulsive, pleasant, smart, but very cruel and corrupt person. He had many women and mistresses and a large number of children and descendants. On the other hand, his youngest son, King Solomon, was crowned king at the age of 12 until his death at the age of 52. He was tall and handsome. He was a king who knew less wars, but also lived his life with absolute chaos. He was known as a wise man. He also had countless women and mistresses, and of course, countless children and descendants. In order to ensure his reign and dominance in the kingdom, even though he was the youngest child of King David, he was forced to murder his brother and some of his advisors and friends who supported the older children of King David. It is funny to me that the Jewish and Christian traditions are waiting for the Messiah to come from the family of King David. Jesus was already considered part of the King David family and was already a Messiah to the Christians. The Jews are still waiting for the same Messiah from the family of King David. It's all nonsense and fairy tales. May God help us if the Messiah indeed shall come from such a dysfunctional family. I hope that the days of the Messiah are near, and when he arrives, I pray and hope that he is purer, more whole, more loving, and more enlightened. It is important to me to inform the reader that King Solomon is Adam in my current reincarnation, and King David is Tova in my current reincarnation, who is the niece of Adam. Of course, some of their wives, mistresses, children, and grandchildren were souls that I know today as part of my soul family and a few close friends, but there is no need to go into detail, at this time.